Welcome to Hope for Parents with Struggling Teens, the podcast for moms and dads in the fight of their lives. I'm Brandon Jaffe, a licensed therapist and owner of Inspired Resolutions Counseling Center. For over 20 years, I've helped families face the chaos of defiance, addiction, anxiety, and despair. And I know how dark and lonely this road can feel. This podcast is about cutting through the noise. I'm here to weed out the unhealthy trends in modern mental health and get back to what actually works. Truth, clarity, boundaries, and connection. No fluff, no promises, just real help for real parents. So let's get to work. Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about when kids have too much to say, which I know in this day and age is kind of an odd thing to, I guess, talk about, because every social media post and expert is saying, give our kids a voice, give our kids a voice. And I like that to an extent, but I think we've sometimes gone too far. For some of you, this is going to hit close to home, especially if you've ever found yourself locked in an exhausting cycle of arguing, negotiating, explaining, or, I don't know, giving in, to still feel like you're totally losing influence over your child. Okay. So, I know that this topic is going to be taken, personally, and it's going to be taken in a way that I don't mean it by some people. Hopefully not, but I think so. And so I see this in my office often, especially with families who have separation or conflictual marriages, or maybe completely separate households because of divorce. And so it's almost like we've given our kids too much power in some instances, whether it be so that we can just get a break because we don't know what to do, or because we're battling, like I said, the marriage or relationship, the co-parenting. And so a lot of times it happens because you're trying to keep the peace. You're trying to parent gently, or you're trying to make up for the chaos in the home that you wish wasn't there, or for the divorce, or what you think the other co-parent is doing. But somewhere along the line, okay, your child becomes almost like the CEO of your household. And now everything's a negotiation, right? Nothing feels stable. And you get to the point where you feel like you're losing yourself. You're losing that vision you had for your process of parenting and teaching and influencing. Okay. So if you identify with that in any way, shape, or form, this episode is for you, and I want to talk about what it looks like, again, when kids have too much say, okay? It is important that we figure out how to parent in a consistent way rather than an inconsistent way, okay? It's important that our parenting doesn't feed this issue even when we have the best of intentions, okay? It's important to take a look at what defiance actually reveals about your child and you and your parenting. And how, I want to talk also a little bit about how to discipline without losing connection, okay? I want to help parents reclaim your influence, not necessarily increase your control, but again, increase your influence. I want all the parents, this message is so consistent in all my episodes. I want parenting to come from a place of peace, not fear. Okay. So, as we kind of dive into this, I've had a few sessions like this. Okay. But I want you to imagine a child who is in a total tailspin, and it's over, let's say, I don't know, sneakers. He wants shoes that are $180, and the parents or the dad or the mom says, I'm willing to pay $50. And the child says, no, I refuse. I'm not getting the shoes. I deserve and I am going to get these $180 pair of shoes. And then the splitting begins. Let's say they call mom and say, hey, you know what? You know how dad is. He's a cheapskate. He's refusing to get me these shoes. You and I had talked about it. And so now through the triangulation, the child has increased the chaos and the resentment in the marriage. He or she has taken power both by the triangulation, but also that refusal. Okay. And so when you have a situation, whether it be divorce, separation, where when you have a high conflict household, these dynamics often happen because there's so much resentment, because there are things going on that the child subconsciously kind of latches onto. And so they feel out of control and are constantly going to be seeking ways that they can find control. And at the end of the day, kids want what they want when they want it. And so if you've got one parent that is thinking, yeah, you know what, this is right and fair and good, and one parent saying, hey, no, this isn't right and fair and good, then what happens is the child's voice becomes too big. Now, I would argue that it isn't healthy for a child to be having those discussions, especially when you have a chaotic home or you have a conflictual home. These decisions about what to buy, where to get haircuts, the clothes, the financial decisions, if you can get to a place, especially if you're still married, it should be discussed diligently ahead of time. And so what we never want to do is promote the child to a place because of conflict and disagreement where they are almost co-parenting with you. Okay. Now, again, a family that's dealing with divorce, anxiety, trauma, ADHD, or any difficulty, the children do not get looped into adult conversations without due diligence, without there being a plan. And the children will latch on and look for weaknesses. They will use meltdowns. They will use chaos in order to gain that control. Okay. And so again, there might be some really common things that you just want to give your child a voice on, and all the social media and the therapists are saying you should give them a voice. But if you have a lot of problems in parenting, if your child has proven to be defiant, you want to step back, and it's okay to give them a voice after the plan has been made and initiated. And I'm talking make plans for the small stuff. Okay. Make plans for almost everything that has to do with decision making. Okay. That has to do with what you're giving them, something that they might think is fair or unfair. And again, it might seem like a lot, and you'll get mixed messages out there, but I'm speaking to the families where there's conflict. I'm speaking to the families where you're going, oh my gosh, my child is kind of like the CEO of the household. So here's a little bit of kind of therapeutic truth. A child, especially one who is struggling, who has too much of a voice, actually feels unsafe. It's not empowering. It's not respectful. And it's unsafe. And when your child is allowed to influence, for instance, financial decisions, when they are able to override parenting plans, when they are able to triangulate two parents who are in conflict with each other, what happens is you're not teaching responsibility. You are teaching them how to use chaos in order to fill the voids when they feel out of control. Okay. And so one thing that a parent can say is, hey, this is a parent decision, and I understand that you have a preference, and I hear you. I care about that. But we're not ready to make this decision right now. I need to take a step back, and I want to talk to your mother. I want to talk to your father about that. Okay. I know that you were expecting this, and this is really disappointing, but right now I don't feel ready to follow through with whatever it is that's going on. And so that's what leadership, that is safety, that is clarity. Okay. You don't always need to give your child a vote in order to get their heart and in order to get their respect and in order to love on them. And you can disappoint them. Things don't have to be set in stone. There's no child that grows up and goes, oh my gosh, I thought things were going to go one way, but my parents were really healthy with each other and I got disappointed. And that's why I'm doing drugs and why my life is a complete mess. Okay. And so, remember that inconsistency between caregivers and chaos between caregivers creates anxiety. It creates patterns of sabotage, and it heightens defiance in a major way. So if let's say that you have a dad who's saying no to the expensive thing and mom is trying to smooth things over and say yes to the expensive thing, well, the message is, well, look, dad's being difficult. And then sometimes I'll get it where a grandma or a grandfather will chime in and say, well, I'll just take care of it. That way you're not paying for it, making it an even worse situation. And what happens is you create a situation where the child gets used to having leverage, and you never want your child to have leverage in a healthy parent-child relationship. And so in some of the cases that I'm thinking of, the family system is broken. Okay. And the parents are operating from a position of stress and survival. And the message often becomes inadvertently to the child, if you don't like the answer from one adult, make sure you figure out how to get another answer from the other adult in any damaging way possible. And so that's a recipe for disaster in any home. And I'm going to be honest, that happens enough. You are giving the child the power to further damage an already damaged marriage. Okay? Your child should never experience intense feelings or experience a chaotic situation when parents disagree, whether you're together or not, whether you're separated or together or divorced. Okay. What happens is, as much as possible, you want to have a unified voice. I think that in really healthy circumstances, if you can get to this point, it can be healthy for them to see you working it out and having a discussion that is respectful and healthy and good. But even if you have a co-parent that drives you nuts, even if they say things that make you want to vomit or roll your eyes, it is not healthy to put the children in that dynamic where they are a part of the really difficult discussion of coming to an agreement. Okay. They should experience more unity in parent, I guess, in the parenting conversations than discord. Okay. Containment of these conversations is what will calm the chaos in your child's nervous system. And so an example would be, you might totally disagree with your co-parent, but your dad and I already talked and we agree on this thing together. Even if you guys yelled and screamed at each other, we're getting there. Once you make a decision, just show a unified front. Okay? Don't play that thing where you go, well, this is what we decided because, your mom's totally unreasonable and, I have to agree to this so that she doesn't get mad. Don't do that. Even if you really, really want to, go get a therapist and process that. Okay? And so for some of you, your brain's going to tell you, yeah, but you don't understand my co-parent that I have to deal with. Yeah, but. And again, you don't have control over everything. You don't have control over them, but do what you can to be healthy on your end, please. Let's be honest. A lot of us are parenting from fear. Fear of being rejected by your kids, fear of triggering a meltdown, fear of becoming our own parents, fear of how our co-parents are going to affect the lives of our children. I could go on and on and on. So sometimes we give in, or we over-explain, or we negotiate, or try to rationalize. Sometimes we overdo the empathy and we underdo the leadership. And so I want all the parents listening to this to find that balance. You don't always owe an explanation. You don't always have to be understood by your child. In the long run, the influence that you want is going to be that they experience less chaos and more calm. Even if you make a bad decision. Okay. A lot of times defiant kids are testing you. They are asking you, can you handle me? Are you going to stay grounded? Are you going to be safe enough to follow? And so when a child doesn't get what they want and they throw the largest temper tantrum, it is so easy to get caught in that moment. It is so easy to get into a place where you allow the weaponization of your guilt, of the triangulation. It's easy to get frozen emotionally, and it's easy to lose consistently the influence and the power that you should have, and to give this subtle power, almost of confusion, over to your child. Look, every inch you are willing to give your child, they will take. Kids will take every inch of power you give them, and then they will hate you for it. They don't want to be in charge no matter how hard they try to be in charge. They want to feel safe when they're dysregulated. They want to feel safe when they're regulated. They want to be led even when they try to reject that leadership. It's important to take a look at what calm authority sounds like. And it sounds like this. Hey, this is a plan. I know you're upset. I'm going to be here with you anyways. I know you don't like it. I am not going to give in. I love you. No, I'm not okay with that, and I'm going to stop this conversation. Now, you notice I don't get louder. I stay firm. I stay consistent. And I don't keep talking. Hopefully you hear that I'm almost getting more grounded as I stand up to my child's defiance. Authority doesn't require that you become larger and bigger. Oddly enough, I don't teach that discipline is the goal. My goal for myself with my child and all the parents that I work with is that you find connection even in the most difficult times. Your child has a complete meltdown. I can remember recently I had a child who had a complete meltdown in my office. And I didn't fight it, but I did wait and use patience and breathing and anchoring and mindful redirection in order to help this particular client find calm. I didn't insist on it. Okay. And it was interesting because in this particular session, I witnessed the child say to his parent, hey, when I feel that way, sometimes can you help me remember what this feels like, which was mind-blowing. Okay. He didn't get his way in session. He came in hoping that I would, advocate for him against his parent and that I would see his reasoning and everything else. And I don't do that. I don't do the tit for tat or negotiating in my office. And what I did was I allowed him to become completely and utterly dysregulated, and I stayed with him until he found his way out of it. A parent can never say, I love you enough, even when they're angry. A parent that can say no consistently and allow that dysregulated moment for their child without chasing them down that dysregulated path is influencing their child in the long run. Okay? So many parents are afraid of discipline. They're afraid of damaging the relationship because they stuck to their boundaries and their child is having a strong reaction to it. But here's the thing. I really believe this part right here, and I want you to listen to it. Repair is more powerful than reward. Your child needs to know that after they mess up, after they lose their minds, lose control, after they explode, after they hurt you, after they are completely unreasonable, that you will be steady, you will continue to be safe, that you will be available for them to practice making amends. And I could talk about amends for another 10 podcasts, but sometimes it's important that you recognize the child and appreciate out loud the child having their dysregulation, and that you really appreciate them coming back to a place that is calm. I think there's a couple of things I hope you take away from this episode. And I kind of feel like I could talk about this for another 10 hours. But kids don't need more say in the relationship usually. They usually need more safety. Inconsistent co-parenting will fuel and create anxiety, chaos, and manipulation. Even in households that are separated or divorced, alignment as much as possible does matter. Okay? Authority does not mean control. It means finding a path to peace. It means staying present. It means maintaining your own clarity. Repair isn't optional on your end. It is essential. And so, if you're one of those parents that's exhausted, you feel like your kid is running the household, or, everything feels like a power struggle, I want you to really think about ways that you can remove them from any and all adult roles, even if they seem small. Okay? I want you to start a conversation with the other parent about where you can easily come together. And here's a consistent message from me always. I want you to say less, hold more, be patient, be quiet. Okay. And remember that we are seeking more calm, less chaos, not perfection. Thanks for listening to Hope for Parents with Struggling Teens. If you found this episode helpful, please like, follow, and share it with someone who needs it. For more support and resources, you can visit us at inspiredresolutionscounseling.com. Remember, you are not alone.